Captain Jay Seeley in the house. Good morning, Captain.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Good, Captain. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Hi, you're welcome.
Lance raised the question. And I know we had you on the show a while back, and we were talking about the concern for gang violence and maybe what had happened earlier in the year. Are you changing microphones for some reason?
Yeah, that one just sounds better for Jay. Yeah.
Okay. And there was a concern, maybe, I guess it was the Hyde Market shooting that didn't result in any kind of charges, and there was some concern that this might exacerbate gang shootings and all of that. Is this the manifestation of that, do we think, or is it too early to know?
Well, it is a little too early to tell. We're still investigating this, but at this point, we don't believe this is part of retaliation for the Hyde shooting.
Okay.
We have information that the retaliation from Hyde shooting will probably come from gang members outside our city, will come from other gang members from within the state. And these last few shootings that we've had are our local gang members shooting at each other.
Juveniles.
Yep, these are all juveniles.
What are ages when we're talking juveniles here? I mean,
anywhere from 15 to 17.
And is that the basic age? Is that the median age of our gang members here in Yakima?
It is, and what we're finding is they're getting younger and younger committing these crimes because these older gang members realize that the juvenile system is really set up to help rehabilitate these juveniles and not keep them in custody. And no fault of the juvenile system, that's just the laws that they're provided. And so what we're seeing is these gang members are taking advantage of that, and they're pushing this down to lower and lower kids to commit these crimes. It's almost like trafficking. You're basically trafficking these young juveniles to commit these violent crimes, knowing that the system really isn't set up to hold them or incarcerate them and keep them in custody.
They can do your dirty work. They won't have to pay a full price like they would if they did it themselves. And the guys that want to be part of the gang, I guess, are willing to do what they're directed to do for admission or advancement. And so it's a system really set up for exploitation of these younger gang guys, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly what we're seeing.
Why don't we see more of these kids behind bars? Why don't we see, more of these kids off the street?
Well, I think, again, it's going to come down to, are we trying to rehabilitate them? Do we want to keep them in custody? What's the best way to get these young kids to change their behavior and then get them back into society? Maybe that's keeping them incarcerated for the rest of their life is not a good plan. And again, we've been fortunate enough that we've been really talking to Superior Court Judge Rukoff. She's fantastic with us. She's educated us on some of the new laws and proposals that's happening right now in Olympia. And I'd recommend if she'd come on your show, you have a discussion with her. She's fantastic and very knowledgeable, and she can help you understand. And she helped us understand some of the laws that we're dealing with. And it's not a police problem; it's a community problem. And the Washington State is really taking a look at these juveniles, and they're really wanting to keep them out of custody. There's some laws coming down that are on the books right now, or potentially could be on the books, that would change the age of juveniles up to 20 years old.
Yeah.
And that'd really change the landscape for us if that actually occurs.
He just might have earned $12.80 for the news tip of the week by telling us to get Judge Rukoff on here. So well played, Captain.
Yeah.
Well played.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow, that's all of a sudden it's the dumbing down of the system and expanding the system for punishment and justice and judgment. I mean, that's nuts. But hey, it is Washington State, right?
It is Washington State, and
wow.
It's it can be very frustrating at times.
I know this is a tough question, but are you frustrated with the county prosecutor's office?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Lance.
Hold on, you forgot to let me do this, Lance.
Well, I mean, I'll read you one of our comments on this story that's on Facebook. It says, "What does it matter? Brusick won't charge anyway. If I was a YPD officer, I would be so frustrated."
Well, I'm going to play this part. I'll tell you that I'm going to try to stay in my lane.
I know you are. Yeah.
I'll do my best to stay in my lane. I didn't go to law school, and he's working within his parameters, and I understand that. And we've had discussions about that. Have I voiced my frustrations? Yes.
Yeah.
And has he voiced his frustrations with me? Of course he has, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stay in my lane, and I'll focus on locating these people, putting together good cases, presenting these cases, and I'll leave it up to Joe Brusick and his team to figure out if we're going to be able to move these cases forward. And if they don't think they got a good case or we can't prosecute, then they're going to have to take the path that they'll take, and we understand that. And it's just, we definitely play different roles.
Yeah.
Very diplomatic, sir.
Yeah, no.
He might have just won $12.80 for the diplomatic comment of the day.
We're up at $26 now.
You guys are setting me up, I think.
Well, I mean, I think they're a fair question to ask, and you fairly answered it. What do you think about these juveniles? You think these juveniles deserve rehabilitation? Do some of them deserve rehabilitation? Some of them deserve jail time? They all deserve jail. How do you feel?
Well, I personally feel that we have a very small percentage of juveniles that are committing a higher percentage of violent crime. Now, those are the kids that I think we have a list of them. We know who they are.
Did you know who these kids were yesterday?
We do. Yeah, we do know these kids. And we have a pretty good handle on the number of gangs that we have, the specific gang members.
Wow.
We're focused on them because we believe these low percentage of population are committing a high percentage of our crimes. And so we're going after them, and we want to go after them. We want to keep them in custody. Those are the kids that we don't want roaming around society, because like yesterday you saw, they're driving around in a stolen car that was stolen the day before. They shot at somebody near the elementary school, which could have easily hit somebody else. And then short time later, they get in a high-speed pursuit, which really affected the entire city of Yakima because they went all over Yakima, clipped the front of a school bus. Thankfully, there were no students on there, and thankfully that the lady that was driving had minor injuries from the airbag.
Yeah.
That could have been so much worse. Again, they just have a complete disregard for the safety of anybody else around them, and those are the kids that we certainly want to go after.
Yeah, no judgment and no fear, kind of. Wow. And I guess if I understand the lay of the land of laws in Washington and the mindset, at least of the Puget Sound area, going after them would almost constitute harassment in their mind, where it's truly the most effective way to do the most good is to take out the few bad actors that are doing most of it. So our system is backwards. We should have expedited ways to be able to get at those folks that we know are truly the problem. I mean, you guys talk like Rush Limbaugh used to say, being the man with one hand tied behind his back, and almost some of the times I think the laws tie you guys' hands behind your back.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Well, and we feel like that at times, and we know the community is frustrated at times.
Sure.
You see that on some of the blogs, and that people are frustrated, and we're all frustrated. And I don't know, the pendulum kind of swings both ways in Washington State. Sometimes it goes to the left, sometimes it moves center, and then starts going to the right. And I think we're definitely moving farther the other direction to the left at this point.
Yes.
And we'll see where that takes us as a society. But eventually, the community is probably going to have to stand up and say, we're done. We're not taking this anymore. Right. We don't want these criminals in our society. We want to be able to walk around and feel safe.
The problem with swinging further and further to the left and before we come to our senses is the damage done along the way, and to individuals and to property and what have you. Well, other than that, how are things, Captain?
Hey, things are fantastic, and I bet you're probably going skiing this weekend, maybe? I heard you talking about the snow.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Any kind of a speed trap you could set up for me?
Yeah.
It would work. It would work. Well, okay, so 4 juveniles, are they all in custody now? Were some taken to the hospital?
Yeah, we took all of them to the hospital just because the crash was so violent. They rolled multiple times and then smashed into a parked car, which knocked that backwards about 50 feet. It was a very violent crash, and so we took all of them anyways as a precaution. And they all had just basically minor bumps and bruises from getting bounced around inside the car. I got to tell you, it was a Kia that was stolen. You got to give props to the Kia company. That wrapped those kids
car,
up in pillows. Every one of the airbags deployed in that car.
Wow.
And every one of those kids walked away from a violent crash that could have very easily been multiple fatality crash.
Jeez.
Wow. How is their attitude? Are they arrogant at this point, or are they in shock, or are they how do they present themselves?
This is going to make everybody frustrated. They're arrogant, very arrogant.
It's just like adds to their street cred there, right?
No desire to talk to the police, and it's no big deal. One of them came out with a gun on, still had a gun in his waistband. So we'll see how this plays out. But they're
2 victims. You got one that was shot in the leg and the lower extremities. The other, the 19-year-old. What does that mean? Is that lower leg or is?
So the one yesterday that was playing basketball at Kiwanis Park, he was shot in the leg. The round went all the way through his leg. The one earlier at Garfield was actually shot in the groin, and it hit his hip, then took a right turn and came out his buttocks. So he was waiting surgery yesterday. He went into surgery, and I haven't heard the outcome, but we'll find out how much damage was done to him.
The 17-year-old.
This is the young man at Garfield on the sidewalk.
Right,
and then
right.
remember, on Friday we had 2 shootings, and that
Right.
was a very serious. The second one was very serious, and sent that one to Harborview with major injuries internally.
Oh my! Well,
And where do we know anything about where these kids are getting their guns? I mean, is this how do you determine that really?
Well, actually, the one on Friday with the major injuries, those we served a search warrant on the house. They had multiple guns and cash and drugs in there, and some of those guns were stolen. So that's how they're acquiring their guns. It's stolen. And some of these gang members can legally purchase guns, which I know this is going to be shocking to a lot of people, but they can legally purchase the guns, and then they just hand them off, and they get handed out throughout the gang.
well, eye-opening words from you this morning, Captain Jay Seeley. Thanks for coming in this morning. We appreciate it.
tough job. We're thinking about you guys out there all the time.
Thank you for
Stay
having me,
safe.
and I look forward to listening to Judge Rukoff on the show.